my office. Welcome to Livecoding is what today is. Wow. Good morning. So Livecoding today. We've been working on an assistant. We've gotten to the point where it does some things, and at this point, what I want to do is check my monitor. What I want to do is make sure that. There we go. Now we should be good. There we go. Okay. Livecoding. Today, our assistant. Where is that sound coming? Mysterious. Sorry, I don't know if you've noticed, I have not exactly been firing on all cylinders the last little bit, which I think is just true of most people out in the world right now. Rasa X. So if you're not familiar with Rasa X, it is our software package Rasa develops to, it's not really a software package, framework, tool system. It lets you share and improve bots over time, and has a really nice interface for things like data annotation and reviewing conversations and checking things and making sure that they're working the way that you intend it. And it is not open source, but it is free. And today, I think we're about ready to start sharing our assistant. So sort of the Rasa principles for conversation development, or CDD, conversation-driven development, is as soon as you can, get your assistant in front of some people, and then we'll start to work on, having it work better. Yeah? See how it works, and then improve it. And the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that Rasa X will work with my particular version of Rasa. So I popped open the compatibility matrix from the Rasa doc. So this is rasa.com/docs/rasax/changelog/compatibility matrix. And then I have listed all of the packages in my current Conda environment, which is where I have Rasa and Rasa X installed in here somewhere. There we go. Okay, so Rasa and Rasa SDK, I have 2.0.0. So I'm a couple versions behind. I think we're in 2.1 now. And I also have Rasa X 0.32.0, and if I check out my compatibility matrix, so here I am, 2.0, I'm gonna need Rasa X 0.33. So I need to update Rasa X, and this is something that we've had quite a few people run into recently, just because there was a major version update for Rasa. And the previous version of Rasa X didn't support the new version of Rasa, so the update is required. And I have forgotten how to upgrade on pip. Pip update. I also don't remember, let's see, where did we install this from? Our PyPI. Okay, so it should be something that we can do with pip, and it is install -- upgrade and then the name of the package. So I should be in my my Conda environment already, so let's try that. Pip install upgrade and then Rasa. Sometimes it's a dash and sometimes it's an underscore. Okay, Rasa -X. And yeah, let's see if that works. Step 1, spell upgrade correct. There's a G in it. That's going. Check the chat. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Oh, is this going to upgrade everything? No, I specified Rasa X. Okay, so it's only upgrading the Rasa X dependencies, one of which is Rasa, so it's probably going to update Rasa as well, which should be okay. So I'm guessing that at the end of this, we're going to end up with Rasa open source and Rasa SDK 2.1.x, and then Rasa X 0.34.x. No, it's TensorFlow. I was like 2.3. I don't remember that update. Yeah. I know this is exciting, but I thought it was worth talking about how to do it on stream and how to check your versions, because this is something that, again, a lot of people have been struggling with right now. And yeah. A bit more coffee. I'm so tired. Like, I'm fine. It's just, you know, it's a stressful time to be in the world right now. And yeah. Oh, Heifer63TW has a command. Okay, so listing from pip just the outdated packages, and then installing the newer versions of them. So that was helpful. Thank you. I don't want to update everything though, because I've got a lot of machine learning dependencies for not for this particular project, but for another project, and I think I'm not doing a very good job about compartmentalizing my environments, and I think they're using the same Rasa Conda environment, so I don't want to nuke stuff, right? I don't want to really go to town with the updating. Should I just create a new Conda environment? Yes, but I'm not going to. I probably will at some point. All right. So at this point, we should be able to run a server with our Rasa, run a Rasa server locally, run a action server locally, because we do have actions, because there's a little database lookup, and that's all done through an action, and then use Rasa X to interact with our assistant. And we'll see if that happens. It has been a second since I've used Rasa X locally as well, so yeah, it'll be a learning experience for everybody. So Rasa run, I think that's the command for just running the server locally. See if I'm right about that. And if you're just joining this particular assistant, once I'm at the point where I'm happy with it, I'm going to be hosting it on my... Oh, I'm not, sorry, so I'm in the wrong directory right now. If I, I am in the directory that has the Rasa directory in it, but not actually the, and now I should see my config file, yep, and my domain and my credentials and everything. Okay, Rasa run. So once I'm at the point where I'm sort of happy with it, this is going to go on my personal website, and it will help with FAQs, so frequently asked questions that people ask me. Okay, so apparently the update has created some things that we need to change. Let's dig into this a little bit more and see what's happening. Okay, could not load model due to token underscore pattern. The easiest thing to do when you run into something like this is just to retrain your model and see what happens. Rohit says, is there any way I can connect my Rasa bot to Microsoft Teams without using Azure? Failed to find slot type. Any is not known or user defined. Yes. Okay. So any slots have definitely been. All right. So let's deal with the update stuff first, and then get back to actually using Rasa X. And my recommendation, Rohit, I haven't actually integrated Rasa X. I haven't actually integrated a Rasa bot with Microsoft Teams, so I would check the forum, and if nobody else has asked about it, I would ask a question. So I've popped up the URL. There we go. It's a transparent animation. I've been learning about composition stuff. Compositing, not composition. Okay, so where was our issue? Rasa core, so that's in the source. So we don't need, that's not code that we've written, right? We don't need to mess with that. So I'm guessing, where's the one that's occurred because of something that we've written? Yeah, so I think the problem is going to be with our domain.yaml with one of our slots. Yes, I see here. Okay, we do have a slot of type any, and I believe any slots are deprecated. So I'm just going to pop open the docs again. Slots. Oh, I'm in the Rasa X docs. Make sure I'm in the Rasa open source docs because we haven't started using Rasa X yet. So slot type. Turns a slot class by its name type. That's not what I'm looking for. Let's just look for slots really quick. There we go. That's going to be better. So this will be an example of how to do it. Text is one of them. Any. Slot type. Okay, here we go. So the slot types are text, Boolean, categorical, float, list, and any. Oh, so any is definitely a slot type for fail to find slot type any is neither a known type nor user defined. If you're creating your own slot type, make sure the module path is correct. Interesting. I don't think right now we're actually using this this time slot for anything. So I'm actually just gonna get rid of it. Yeah, so this was from an earlier iteration of the assistant where we were doing we were using duckling to extract times as more as an example, and I don't actually need that anymore. Hi Jokercraft, welcome to the stream. Okay, so let's try retraining and see if we still get that same error. I'm definitely in the same. One sec, I'm gonna peek behind something. You know what? I don't think my conda environment might be activated. I think I might have done this all. I think it was called fresh Rasa install _2. And then if I list all the stuff that's in it. So the reason I'm confused is that slot type any is definitely something that is available in Rasa 2.x plus. So I'm confused why we're getting the. Interesting. Our Rasa install was downgraded. And Rasa X is now 0.32. Gonna pop back, which is what it was previously. So this was the Rasa X. This is the Rasa X version we were on previously. This is the Rasa open source and Rasa SDK version we were on previously. We upgraded the Rasa X install, and that, I don't know that we did it in this conda environment though. That could be the issue here. So let's try upgrading Rasa first and see how that does. Actually, I am wondering if I've done something funky. Oh, this is in Rasa X again. So I want to know about updating. So the Rasa X and Rasa open source documentation is separate. So update. Oh, it's upgrade. Sorry, it's upgrade, not update. All right. So this is from Mighty. All right, so let's try upgrading Rasa and see what happens. Hefter says, if you weren't in the environment, did you possibly upgrade something else? Yeah, it's very possible. That is extremely possible. Although we've been working... it's possible that we're working in a different kind of environment than I thought we were. Yeah, let's just, you know what, let's just install some more stuff. Grade Rasa, and then we'll do Rasa X. I don't think I actually need the 3. I think Pip will do it. And just for background, I am here on Windows 10. So I think I would need... I think Pip3 is what I would use on Mac right now. Shay says, better keep a requirements folder handy. Yeah. Oh, I thought I had one in here. I don't think I do. Rachel, are you not following best practices very closely, and is it causing you problems down the line? Listen. Absolutely. Maybe off topic, do you have a good source to start with ML? This is a fantastic question, Jokercraft. Thank you. This is exactly the sort of thing I wrote the bot to answer. So I have some FAQs, and the assistant's going to be able to answer this. And what it would say for this is, if you want to learn about machine learning in general, you could try the fast.ai course or Kaggle Learn. So those are 2 resources that I would recommend. Fast.ai is more like, I'd say it's more like machine learning engineering. It's really focused on like helping you build a project as quickly as possible, and the Kaggle Learn are more about sort of, it has been a while since I've used these resources myself, but a lot of the Kaggle Learn courses are more about sort of the fundamentals and understanding and helping you build skills. So I would say that is extremely on topic. I may have to change the title of the stream. This may just be like messing with installs. Yes, because I don't want Rasa X 0.3 2.0. I want Rasa X 0.33 plus. Okay, so I think that's been updated. And then if we look at our list, we should now have Rasa 2.1 probably, because I believe that's the most current version. Yeah, Rasa 2.1.3 for Rasa open source, and the Rasa SDK 2.1.2, which is good. And then now we're gonna do Rasa X as well. And I think y'all were right. I think I was working in a different environment. And I just assumed that it did the thing that it usually does with VS Code, and it opens the environment I was using last, and this time it doesn't. But sometimes it does, and I have a hard time determining when it's going to be. Efter says, do you know if the game Well True Learn is any good? I have not heard of this, so I have no and then upgrade Rasa X. I don't have any good recommendations for you. Thinking Sutra says, can we share without hosting in the cloud? Yes, you can. So we might even get there today. And we have some, I believe it's in all the Rasa X installation tutorials or Rasa local mode installation tutorials on the YouTube channel. We also talk about using ngrok to share something that you have locally using an, you know, web address, a URL web address. What's the word I'm looking for? There will be a URL anyone can go to and use your assistant, is what I'm trying to say there. So we might get there today, assuming the installation stuff works. But I would say that that's going to work well for testing and like small stuff. It is not going to work well long term for like the way that you actually host your project. unless you have like a dedicated server that's going to be running full time that you have locally for some reason. How can we add live chat to I'm assuming to like a website or something? There's a tutorial on the Rasa channel on having a Django website with there's a React front end that somebody has built. So that might work for you. And if you have more specific questions, I would point them to the forum. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for this animation? It's transparent. Apparently that's the hardest thing to do. I don't know why. No training data given. Okay. Okay, so that's a lie. So my training data is here in this data folder. Interesting. Okay, so this is not ideal. So what I expected to happen, well, I guess first let's check our, that's not what I meant to do. I just wanted conda list and I was too lazy to type it and I didn't hit up enough times. There we go. So what I expected to happen was that it trained and then there was a new model and it worked good. And that's not what happened. And it said that there wasn't any data. Okay, so the thing that's happening is definitely that when I upgrade Rasa X, it is also, when I upgrade Rasa X, it is downgrading Rasa. Presumably to a version that is currently compatible with it. So that's no good. Let's specify the version. And the specific version that we want, I'm gonna pull it up over here from the compatibility matrix. Okay, so if we're gonna be having 2.1x, we want Rasa X to be 0.34.x. Oh, yes, I did actually mean two equal points. Thank you. Equal points. I think we're on, sorry, I need the final thing of the semantic versioning, and I think the last one should be a 0. Okay, this is very fascinating. I can't say I'm loving this experience, and it seems like a pip thing. So, is it possible that the version in PyPI is not the most recent version? And if so, how do I get that? Okay, so let's check out the getting started and installing Rasa X. And I am using local mode, so let's pop over to this. Aha, gotcha. Okay, so we actually need to specify a specific we need to specify a specific URL, and that's what I was missing. Oh, I vaguely remember that. Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Okay, so it was 0.33.0, right? Oh, great. pip3, again, not needed on Windows. Oop. All right, excellent. I have high hopes that this will work. Ashay says, how much data per intent do we require to get a decent model? Like if we have some similar intent, say 3 out of 10. I think that's 2 questions. I believe our recommendation is around 20 training items per intent. And if possible, have as many of those as possible be from users. But if you have a lot of very similar intents, then I think it's worth trying to figure out if you can turn some of those into the same intent and get the differences between them with entities. So an example would be, I might want to, you know, start if you're an insurance company, I may want to start an account for my house. I might want to start an account for a vehicle. I might want to start an account for life insurance. And I would put all of those under, you know, one intent that's start a new account, and then use entity recognition to figure out, okay, life insurance, house, or vehicle is the third one. I was like, was it pet insurance? I don't remember what my third example was. Because intent is a multi-class classification problem. So the fewer intents you have, the easier the baseline is going to be for your model. Whereas NER isn't really that, right? You can have multiple entities per utterance, and your system should be able to handle it pretty well. So I would recommend, as much as possible, combining similar intents and distinguishing them via entities or some sort of rule. Like if someone asked about pets and then now they're trying to open an account, probably they're interested in pet insurance, and you can ask that and verify that and continue down that workflow. So that's my strong recommendation. So just baseline. I mean, I don't think I have 20 per example in this one. I think I probably have closer to 6 or 7. Yeah, so for these I have like 4 to 5 for a lot of them. But yes, I think 20 is a good baseline, and then as much as possible, reduce your number of total intents. Hopefully that helps. I know that like rewrite your assistant is not a great answer to hear in terms of the amount of work you're going to need to do, but I genuinely believe it'll make your life easier in the long run. All right, let's see what our current state is. I'm in Washington State. Okay, fantastic, excellent. So that upgrade got us to not the most recent version of Rasa, but it didn't downgrade us back to 1.x. So now if we do Rasa train, it should work, because I wrote this assistant using Rasa 2.0.0. And I don't believe there are any major differences between 2.0.0 and like 2.1. I think it's mostly bug fixes. This is what I expected to happen, a model being trained. What was it? A couple weeks ago we were training models and someone had a question about their model being very slow to train, and something like having a lot of intents that are very similar is something that might slow down your model training, because it'll just take longer to get to convergence because it's a harder machine learning problem, and may at some point be like a honestly not super solvable machine learning problem. Thinking Sutra says how to handle synonyms. You can, so if it's something like an entity can be referred to in multiple ways, you can map synonyms to the same entity. And I believe we also have just straight up a way to handle Yep, we straight have a way to handle synonyms, which is a map where you can be like, hey, all of these things are the same thing. And that goes in your NLU data. Like so is the answer to your question. Booty Boy says, can you just use Rasa X, or do you need Rasa open source? You need Rasa open source in order to use Rasa X to have a model that's been trained. If you say already have a trained model project that you're working from, I mean, you still need to have Rasa open source, because that's what's doing the actual conversation having part of the workflow. But if you're just using Rasa open source, you don't need to use Rasa X. It's just, you know, a number of tools that people have found helpful over time for building assistants. All right, so now let's try what happens when we run our assistant, and hopefully it works. That'll be great. Fantastic. All right, so when we are on localhost 5005, all right. And then in this one, I'm going to change directory into the right one, and then I'm going to run the actions.py file, which is what's going to let me do all of that. And then I'm going to, in another, I believe it's Rasa space X. But this is one of those ones that I always get wrong. Yeah, it's Rasa space X. And then I am going to turn on secret stuff because this will show my server password in plain text, and because I'm going to be opening it up, I don't want y'all to be able to just go in there and change stuff. So I'll be right back. So I did forget to actually go to the right directory. So we're gonna try that one more time in the right directory. All right, now I'm gonna be right back. All right, I'm back, and it's not great news. Udi Boy says Rasa X is just a GUI. Yes, it's a GUI, and it lets you do. I mean, you can annotate data by hand in the flat files. It's just rough. I wouldn't recommend it. But yes, it's a visual interface to make the workflow work well. All right, something went wrong. So everything was looking good. We were starting in local mode, and then immediately got this unable to start server error. And why did that happen? Create server from none. Ah, I see. Okay, so we have our Rasa assistant running on localhost 55.5 is the action server. Gotcha. Okay, and then we have our Rasa assistant running on localhost 5005. And as you can see, when we try to start our Rasa X instance on that same port, this interpreted that as a request and didn't work. Okay, so hey, Marco. Well, this ain't never happened to me before, so let's go to the forum and see if this has happened to anyone else. Rasa and Rasa X on same port? Question mark? That's how I write that. Multi-language. Connection refused. Persons. This is from 2019, so it's a little bit older. Let's see, it looks like not our same problem. And then the old sudo upgrade update worked fine for them. Okay, so that's not gonna help us. Luan says, start Rasa X first, then the action server. So it's not actually the action server it's conflicting with, it's Rasa X. Sorry, it's the Rasa open source. Our action server is on 55.5, which I believe I'm also specifying in the endpoints is where it is. Yep, so 55.5. And Rasa X and the Rasa assistant both want to be on 5005. Maybe I actually don't need to start the Rasa server separately. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. So let me kill the Rasa server, and then we will try in a separate, and then we'll try restarting and see if that. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so something funky has happened. Let's try relaunching Rasa X here without starting the Rasa server first and see what happens. The more I think about it, the more I'm thinking that I did make up that you need to start the Rasa server first. I think that's just if you were. Okay, yes. I'm confusing myself because when I was doing the Django stuff, I needed to start the Rasa server separately, but Rasa X starts the Rasa server. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to kick it off and we'll see if I'm right. It worked! Yay! Sorry, I have my mic off when I do secret stuff in case I ever need to type passwords or stuff, because those can be detected from just auditory input of you typing. It worked! Yay! Okay, so that away down there. Yes, it worked. I've immediately lost it. Beans, where's... There we go. Whew. Here it is. So you can see no one's ever talked with our assistant, which is correct. So let's try doing a couple of example conversations, and then I'll share it out, and some of y'all can talk about it. Yeah. And Divinyash says, yeah, you don't need to start Rasa server separately. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Like I mentioned, it's been a while since I started Rasa X in local mode, and I forgot how to do it. All right, so let's start with a conversation with our bot. So there's a number of things you can do here. You can look at, you know, conversations that the people have had with the assistant. Let me pop myself over. Whee! Now I'm on this side. You can look at the interactions people have had with your assistant and see, you know, if there's anything you need to change. You can, there we go. I was like, where's all my models? You can switch between versions of a model if you're doing testing before, for example, you push them live. You can, you know, look at all of your training data, add additional training data, remove training data, and you can also train a new model right in your, you can't see my mouse. It's over the train button. You can train a new model right in Rasa X, which is really helpful if you're working on a multidisciplinary team, and you know, maybe you have some people who are more familiar with banning, and you have some more people who are familiar with you know, the language part of it, but maybe wouldn't be comfortable with training from the command line. So it's really nice for interdisciplinary teams. You have a history of all the conversations, and you know, a nice way to share your assistant as well. And then you can just talk to the assistant yourself. In theory, you can just talk to the assistant yourself. And I appear to have found something not ideal. And as you can see, this is all running on localhost. And also, you can if you are running in not local mode here, you can connect a GitHub repository to your assistant, so you can do you know, versioning and CI/CD with Rasa X. And then if you have you know, multiple people who are using the same assistant and are working together as a team, say at a company where it's their job, and you want permissions and stuff like that, talk to our sales team and get hooked up with Rasa Enterprise for enterprise people. Okay, so let's, oh right, I don't have a model selected. That makes sense. Boop. Come on. Interesting. Okay, so this looks like this problem is happening because I don't have a model selected. That might be a bug. If I was my, oh, right, my notebook. Oh, I forgot to put on earrings this morning. Oh well. Talk to bot, no model, select, blank screen, and the port was 5002, right? $5,002. Local host 5002. We can also check out our okay. Warning, some event failed due to an integrity error. Event was already stored in the database. Values. Okay, so just question mark, question mark. I think this is all because the assistant was not trained good. That's not what I'm looking for. All right, one sec. Let me do something real quick. I'm back. Okay, so now let's try selecting our model first and see if we get a different result. Back to load. There we go. All right. Yep, I want that. Yep. That's the active model. So we should be able to talk to the assistant. There we go. Okay. Yep, I think that was the problem. Oh, you know what? When we were looking at models, I bet I unselected the active model, and then it was in a state where there were no models active. But like at that point, we should throw up an error screen or something, right? Okay. Tamir said, you really need to show how to install Rasa X on Google Server and Heroku and run the action server on them. People have problem getting this to run on Heroku and Google Server. We do have a Rasa X installation on GCP. I believe we're using GCP being Google's cloud service. I believe I'm using the VMs there, the virtual machine rather than Google Server. But there is a YouTube tutorial on the channel. I don't remember what it's called, but if you search for like Rasa X GCP, I think it'll pop up. And I lost it again. There we go. Okay, so let's start a conversation. Pop me on the other side. There we go. And just show what the assistant can do, and then work on sharing it. And I think I'm gonna need to start an ngrok session to share it. And wow, I hope I have ngrok installed in this Conda environment. I guess we'll find out. So I'm gonna say hi to start off the conversation. And that should be identified as a greet and should trigger the response from my assistant. There we go. Okay, so the intent was identified as greet, and then the assistant says utter greet. I'm a chatbot, can answer some of the questions that Rachel gets asked a lot. What questions do you have? So I'm gonna ask, oh, what was the exact phrase that Joker Craft used? Because I'm gonna add this to my training data. Do you have a good source to start with ML, question mark? And this should be identified as an FAQ. Okay. What type of resource do you want? Book, course, or video? And I'm going to say course because that's what I recommended. I think this is going to be more about NLP than ML. Okay, so we ran the action query resource type. That was right. And then we need to tell people what the resource is. You can't just query it and then not say nothing. Okay, so the thing that I want to say after that is we querying the resource type, and then we should tell the person what we said. Oh, interesting. Okay, so let's pop back to our assistant. So this is why it is always super good to test your assistant a little bit yourself before you get it in front of folks. What does the query resource type do? Get that out of here. Shoo. So that would be in the domain. Okay, so here's all the FAQs. Resource type. Okay, as type, what type of resource do you want? And at that point, I believe we pass it over to the actions, but let's double check in the stories. Okay, and then we have this action query resource type. So this is what we are expecting it to do. So if we look at this, query resource type, yep, that's right. Okay, so we should get, the dispatcher should utter a message here, and it for sure isn't. And we know that the action server is running, right? Because otherwise, do we know the action server is running? Actually, is that why we're getting this issue? We should have gotten an error if the action server wasn't running. So let's check out our Yeah, okay. So here's our assistant, and we ran into some errors here. Sanic root. Error occurred when handling URI, unknown, none, type, none. This should be... Oh, you know what? I think it's a Rasa SDK. Yes, I think it's a Rasa SDK error. So let's just really... Oh, we're going to have to retrain everything. Okay. So, do this. Is your action server running? Yeah, it is. Then that's where I'm getting this error message from. Good question, though. Hi, Robbie. Vera says, I'm a beginner in Rasa X. Can you show how to train a bot to show the current weather? Not just at the moment, no. What I would do there is I would create a, identify the API you want to use to get the information from, identify what fields that API is going to require to be passed to it, create a form to collect all those fields when people want to know what the weather is, and then create an action that will use the information to that form to make the call to the API, and then take that response from the API and send it back to the user. So that's the general structure of what I would do. Is there any community kind of thing for the Rasa where we can ask questions? So I think we do have one for Rasa contributors that is more, so if you've made contributions to Rasa open source, but it's more focused on sort of like the contribution process, the best place to ask questions is the Rasa forum. And we'll try to get to it within 3 working days. What days are working days will depend on where the person you're talking to is located. And also the community is really active there, so I think that's probably the best place to head to. Okay, so I think we've identified the problem here. The problem is a mismatch between Rasa open source and the Rasa SDK. And if we... and if we list our content environment, we should be able to see that mismatch here. Yep, so so Rasa is behind the Rasa SDK. So should we downgrade the SDK or should we upgrade Rasa? I have the compatibility table open in here, just easy to get to. Looks like no. Okay, my gut instinct is that we should downgrade the SDK. Right, so let's was it underscore SDK or dash SDK? Dash SDK. And then we want it to be the same as Rasa X, which I believe was 2.0.2, but let me double check the build. 2.0.2. Yep. Okay. Okay, so we're going to actually ask for 2.0.0 instead of 2.0.2. Okay, so at this point, let's restart our actions server, because that's the only thing that relies on the SDK. And let's Control C. Yeah. All right, I'm just gonna delete it entirely. See, now it's nope. That's not the one I want. That's the one I want. Okay, so I think it was silently start. Okay. Everything makes sense now. It was silently starting a conda environment, but it wasn't the conda environment that I thought it was. It was the conda environment that I had 1.x installed in. So now I've updated my 1.x installed environment to 2.x, and we'll deal with that in the future. I don't think it'll be an issue because I've updated all my Rasa systems that relied on that directory to handle 2.x. It was more of a legacy one. But I think I also have a freeze from it, so I could downgrade again if I wanted to, and I definitely have that versioned on GitHub, so that should be okay. All right, so let's try running the actions and see if we get a better result with Rasa X. Oh, right. First, make sure you're in the right directory, then run it. Okay, and then it's up and running, 55.5, which is where we have said to look for it. So at this point, let's do that. So that is actually correct. So let's really quickly restart our conversation, and I'll move me. And let's see if it goes. Okay. I don't remember. Let's see if we can do exactly the same thing again. I think it's going to recommend a resource about NLP rather than ML specifically, because of the way we wrote the action, but I think it'll work. So I think if I ask for a course, it's going to recommend the Spacey course, maybe? That's not ideal. So what I expect here is the text that the dispatcher uttered, and that's not what I got. So, all right, make you small. Let's check these logs. Oh, looks good. Okay. So it looks like the action server isn't running into issues. What about you? Saving event failed due to an integrity error. This means the event is already stored in the database. The event data was unique constraint failed. Conversation ID, timestamp, type name. Insert into conversation event. Question mark, question mark, question mark. Action, none, action, listen, none, 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 sender ID, event action, action, listen, background error. Fascinating. Okay, so it looks like we didn't actually have... Oh, and that one just popped up just now, just while we were doing this. Interesting. Okay, at this point I'm going to go back and check the action server again. Nope, nothing has happened. It doesn't... Okay, so it looks like no request was made to the action server, which is not ideal. Let's check our conversations. Okay, so we have two conversations. We have the two conversations we've had. Okay, and they look to be... Yeah, okay. So these are the two conversations that we've had. They're both today. It is doing what I expect it to do is the thing, and it looks like the problem here is a disconnect between the action server. So let me try a new conversation that's not calling the action server and see how it goes, and I think that will help us pick apart whether this is a problem with my action server or whether this is a problem with my assistant. Bonal says it's taking a while to give the reply. Yeah, so I am, I will say this is a Windows thing, so I am using localhost. And if you use localhost rather than, 1.2, I can never remember the address, but like home, the way that Windows 7 Plus resolves what localhost points to takes a little bit every time and slows down your assistant. And this shouldn't be an issue if you're running it on a server. So yes, it is a little slow. I'm not entirely surprised about that. Yeah. And you can see this is also on localhost, the URL here. So just it's great. I love it. I love that that happens to me every time that I try to use something that points to localhost on this computer. Okay, so we're just going to start having a conversation that doesn't require an action server. Do you like Python or R? So this should trigger the FAQ Python or R, and I should get a response about Python or R. Yes. Okay. So it looks like, so if we check our logs, we should not get an error here. And you can see the action point endpoint is up and running, 505. And if we check my endpoints, that is also the one that it is pointing towards. 505. Yep, that's correct. So we're getting a lot of these exception occurred when handling URI unknown none type none errors that I don't think I've seen before. And these look like SANIC errors. Let me do a quick Google. Let's see if anyone else has run into these. How much do I know about SANIC? Not much. I know vaguely about what it do. Let's see. It looks like this is actually type error. Pop this open. So it looks like this is happening. Internal server error. Conversations. So this was a bug in 2019, not with Rasa X. So that's probably not it. And I just got that by Googling the error or using a search engine to find the error. After says you did delete a time thing. Yes, I did delete a so let's check my NLU real quick, but I don't think I use it anywhere. So there was an entity that we deleted, and if it was, so let me check my training data. So here we can see this is an example of something that's been tagged with the entity resource type. I don't think we use time at all. Yeah, no. So it's not showing up in any of the NLU. I don't think it's showing up in the rules. No, it's not. And I don't think it's showing up in the stories. Yeah, it's not. So we did delete something, but we're not using it anywhere. So I don't think that's the cause of the error. Famous last words. Hi, Bull Machine. Oh, no, yeah, I remember that. I think I said I would probably pick working on backends over machine learning in general, just because for graduate degree. I vaguely remember that. Coffee makes me happy. Okay. Stack Overflow error. Stack Overflow error. Okay, so here's another issue at Rasa that might be helpful. It looks like this is 2019 again, so this is not super recent. And are they getting, and this isn't the same error either, so you can see that this is yeah, they're not getting exactly the same error, but it could be helpful. So they trained a new model using the Rasa X UI on Ubuntu. And this is, okay, so this is on a server as well. So this is going to be overall, I think, slightly different than what we have. Why don't we, there we go. Why don't we try retraining a model and see if that helps? I think that's a good default answer to I'm having sudden problems I didn't have before. It could be, especially if you've updated your assistant, it could be just that the latest model that you've trained is no longer compatible with your stuff. So that could be the issue. Actually, did I train a model after I downgraded the SDK? I don't think I did. This might be the problem. Pop myself to the other side. Yes. Interesting. Audio Voice says, try Linux. Yeah, so actually before January of this year, I pretty much developed exclusively on Linux, and then I only use Windows for live streaming. And these days I'm using Mac and for the rest of my development work, and then make this the active model and see if that fixes our problem, because it might, and that would be great. Also, I'm zoomed way in, which I know is making the UX look a little bit funky. All right, so let's try talking to our assistant again. There we go. Okay, and let's try this time seeing if we can get the action triggered. So I'm just going to, can you recommend a learning guide? If we have deleted related to a course when it got trained, I've joined in between the stream, my bad. We have the data related to course when it got trained. Not entirely sure what you mean by that, Banala. Oh, I see. Okay, so I think I have an example in my training data that's like, can you be my learning guide? Because I get asked a lot if I can take on mentees, and the answer is usually almost always no, unfortunately, just because I'm stretched pretty thin. Not that thin, but I just don't have a lot of excess capacity right now, I would say. Okay, so let's try, actually also let's correct this. So this should actually be, give it a sec. Can you recommend a learning guide should be ask resource? Which I don't know if you saw there, it had a 0.25, which meant that it had a low confidence for that particular, yep, and then ask type, yep. And I'm gonna say, and then listen, yep. So I've turned on active learning, which means that, let me zoom in a little bit, which means that I am, you know, saying what happens at each point. So I'm gonna say, I want a book. And I think this will recommend speech and language processing. Interesting. Okay, so we have the same problem that we had before with the action server. Well, first of all, let's see if anything happened to the action server. This one, right? Okay, so it looks like the action server isn't actually being hit, right? Because if we had any, you know, requests to this particular endpoint, it would show up here in the logs. And if we look at this, scroll. Okay, so here we're having, interesting. So it looks like it's a problem with our tracker store is my guess. So the tracker store is what saves the state of the conversation. And it looks like, just sort of peering at this error, that what's happening here is that things are not being added to our trackers store, right? So this insert into conversation event, it's all just like, no actual information is being added. Interesting. Yeah, SQL error, yeah. Oh. I do have a bad thought, which is that this might be due to dependency changes when we updated stuff. Would love if that weren't the case. Would love if I wasn't in dependency hell, but I think I might be. Okay. Viviana says you might need to add more stories. Yeah, the thing is the action is being triggered correctly by the assistant. It's just not going to the action server. And I think the reason that it's not going to the action server is that the fact that it's occurring won't happen. And then Marco says that there's a double entry. Yeah, which there shouldn't be, right? So this double entry thing. So a double entry would mean that the sender ID, so the sender ID should be the same. That's not surprising. The event might be the same. That's okay. The timestamp should not be the same, right? Because that's a pretty accurate timestamp. So I'm not, maybe it's double submitting it, possibly. I don't think I have a Rasa, I don't think I still have a Rasa server running, which could, I guess, cause this to be the case if I was making a request simultaneously through Rasa X to the Rasa server and to the Rasa server separately. But the lock should prevent that, right? So the lock store, you know, sort of closes down the ability to change stuff. Capture says, looks like you're inserting none. Still learning backend, but shouldn't that be null? It looks like it matches with intent name if I am counting my commas correctly, and then unique constraint. Here's the thing. I have not modified the tracker store, and I haven't modified the lock store, so something has changed such that it's not working. You know what we should do? We should kill this and try using Rasa X just from the shell and see what happens. Because my question is this a Rasa X thing or is this a Rasa thing? And we haven't answered that yet, and I think that will help us dig down into it a little bit. Can we use conditional statements in stories? Rules is where those go. So here I have some rules for this particular assistant, and that's where you do like if X and then Y, and those will be sort of automatically considered along with your stories at training time. All right, so let's try to do a conversational path that will trigger the I need an NLP course. So this should trigger. Oh, well, okay. Can you recommend an NLP resource? That wasn't the that did answer the question, but that wasn't the didn't trigger the action I wanted. Okay, so I want a book. And this should trigger the action server. Okay, so let me check the action server really quick. Oh, maybe it's not going to be log. Oh, I didn't start it with logging. Yeah, that'll do it. Okay, so I think what might be happening. Okay, so what's happening behind the scenes, which I could have shown you very easily by starting logging, but I didn't. Oh well. Is here we are. Here we're collecting a slot, so book, course, or video, and then we're using that slot to make a query to a database, which is a very small, dinky database. It's this one. So we're asking for a book, which will randomly sample one of these, a course, which will randomly sample one of these, excuse me, and then a video, which will always have the same thing. And I think what might be happening is, because we're not doing data validation, right? We're not actually checking to see that the information that the person put into the assistant, that the information the person shared actually matches one of these fields in my database. It's a SQLite database. This is just a CSV version of it, so we can see it a little bit clearer. If I'm saying book with a lowercase b, it's not going to return an answer, and that's what happened here, right? And what that's returning is, rather than, yes. Okay. I think this all makes sense. Let's check the action that's doing this. Okay, so I do have some sort of. Okay, first of all, I don't think I need these. Get rid of that. Okay, so here I am, this sub function select by slot is returning this information. And I think that's what's happening is, because I had it in brackets, it was parsing it as a list, possibly. Let's just see if this changes anything real quick. So I'm just going to kill my action server and then restart it and see if we get any different output. Also, that's nothing. Okay. Run the action server. I should have started it with logging. Oh well, I don't care that much. Yeah, Marco says you could use word.lower. Yeah, definitely we could. I think, but the thing is I want slightly more complex data validation, so if someone says something like books, that will also work. And that's, I think, a question for future Rachel, because it's not just going to be case issues, right? Yeah. Lambert says, can you use custom actions in form validation? Yeah, I think the fact that I didn't have validation is what's causing this problem, but I do want to determine that that is the case. So because we've just restarted the action server, we shouldn't have to restart Rasa X because it's just making calls to the action server. So if I... Okay, well, all right. Can you recommend an NLP resource? So this should be tagged as the same thing, and it should ask us what type of resource. And I'm going to say book with a capital B. So this time I should get text back, and it should be one of the books from my database. Yes, okay, that works. And if I say book with a lowercase b, that's nothing. Yeah, okay, and then I get just text back. So I'm wondering if this was causing the problem. So let's start another Rasa X instance. And I don't think I'm going to share this one, so I think I should be okay to just... see? Yes. So I think I should be okay to just start it here, because it's on my local host, so you're not going to be able to use it anyway. Rachel, how strong was your coffee? Strong enough? Yeah, I think that's because I had my other one still open. There we go. Okay. So that's a worrying warning. That's the type of warning that says to me that this isn't going to work on Windows. Ooh, I hope that's not the case. It would be ideal if that were not the case. But let's see if we can get it going. So I've just completely restarted my Rasa X server, and as you can see, it's popped it open in a browser window for me. Yeah. Lambert says, I got the same problem while calling my SQL in Rasa X. The request is not showing as output, but in the NLU shell, it worked well. Yeah, interesting. I wonder if I might be making a slightly wrong call to the dispatcher, right? Because I'm using the dispatcher, and my assumption that the dispatcher is going to take the message, send it to the tracker store is going to read it out and pass it to the user. But perhaps that is not the case. Take a second. All right. View the models. Okay, no, I do have, okay, yep, that should be good. Oh, it's 10:14. Let me double check. I know I have something after this. Okay, I might have to wrap this up really quickly, but let's see if we can get this. We have one conversation that works, just one. All right, so let's see. And see if we can get the output from our assistant. What I may have to do if this doesn't work is go back, save that information as a slot, where the slot is like database output, and then create a new utterance that takes that slot information and just gives it to the user. Let's see if that works. Can you recommend an NLP resource? Book, capital B. Thinking. Okay, so it's correctly extracted the entity. Yes, fantastic. Okay, so it was absolutely the way I was handling my data validation that caused the issues. Great. Okay, so this works. Problem solved. The thing that was causing it was the fact that I was returning my, to the dispatcher list, because I had it, my return statement in square brackets if the queried field wasn't found in the database. And let me see if I actually do a lowercase b, see if I'm gonna get something back about not having a resource. Yes, okay, fantastic. So that was the problem. It was not being rendered because it was returning an empty list, and I think the empty list was messing up the tracker store. Yes, okay. Problem solved. We have the assistant up on Rasa X. Don't know that we shared it, but we fixed it, which I am pretty happy with. And I do have to get ready for my thing in 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, so I think this was a pretty successful day. We got our assistant up on Rasa X in local mode. I'm sorry for the person who asked about sharing it. I don't think we're gonna get to that today, but we will handle it, I think, next week, the 18th. Yeah, oh no. So starting next week on the 18th, I'm gonna not have my Friday live streaming for a whole month. Until January 15th. So this is actually going to be the last live coding for a long time. Ooh. I might sneak one in there right before the holidays in the US as like a, or I guess I can record one. Anyway, it's not the same when I record it. So that might be something that's happening in the new year because there's a bunch of time off coming up. Things to do in the future. Let me leave myself some notes. Where's the best place to leave these notes? To do. Data validation and for DB queries. Which is what was causing us the issue in the first place. Multi-field DB queries. So you can be like, I want an NLP resource, I want a machine learning resource. So you can get a more accurate answer for the specific thing that you want. And then sharing on Rasa X, local mode, and Grok. Okay, so that's what we will do in the future. Yeah, I think overall this was a pretty successful day. We updated, we got our versions all compatible with each other. We figured out the issues. We got everything good to go. We got it running in Rasa X. We got our action server running in Rasa X. And yeah, I think we're in a pretty good place to call it a day. So I'm gonna call it here. I will be back next Wednesday with one of our wonderful CSE, right? With one of our wonderful Rasa team members for another office hours Q&A session, and that will be the last one again for a while, just because there's big holidays in the US and Europe, so we're not going to be in. And I'll publish the full schedule on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you found this helpful. There was definitely some frustration, but we came through in the end. And I will see you next Wednesday for office hours. I'll talk to you.